Hi, this is Miss Clark. Today we're going to be talking about the rubrics for your essay project that you are currently working on, your narrative essay project. So let's just jump right in. First, I would like to talk about the points breakdown. Here on this little sticky note, you can see the points breakdown of this project. The total is 150 points, so quite a bit, but completely doable, I promise. Don't get too stressed. Your brainstorming and your planning, which you have already learned about, hopefully, in the narrative essay interactive presentation, PowerPoint, they are both worth 5 points, but its completion, I will just look at them, make sure that they are done completely on relevant things. You obviously can't just write "I like apple pie" 17 times. That's not going to work. So it's all or nothing completion points, nothing to stress about. Your first draft is worth 25 points. 10 points of that are completion, 15 points are based on a rubric that we will learn about here in a second. Your peer review is worth 10 points. There's a rubric for that I'll go over as well. And your final draft is worth 105 points. So that's a pretty good chunk of your project. So if I had to stress one area that you really need to put a lot of hard work into, it's your final draft. Okay, let's jump right into the rubrics then. So first, right here, we have your first draft rubric. I'll go through your first draft rubric in more detail than I will your final draft rubric, because your final draft rubric is basically an expanded version of this. So we have 5 categories here. 3 points is the most you can get, and as you can see from the points breakdown, your first draft is worth 25 points. 10 points of that is completion, and then 15 points of that comes from this rubric right here. So your first category is organization, which basically deals with how well your essay is organized, if it's in chronological order, or if your scenes kind of seem confusing or random. That's what this deals with. So if it's very well organized, that's 3 points. If it's pretty well organized, maybe one scene out of place, 2 points. If it's kind of hard to follow, that's 1 point. And if it seems just really randomly arranged, no points. Spelling and punctuation. In your first draft, spelling and punctuation are much more lax than they are in your final draft, which we will go through here soon. So for your first draft, you can have 5 or fewer errors if you want to get 3 points. If you have 6 to 8 spelling or punctuation errors, that's 2 points. If you have 8 to 10, that's 1 point. And if you have more than 10, that's 0 points. So you still need to check for spelling and punctuation, using a grammar checker or just your own eyes or whatever. But it's not as important as it is for your final draft. Focus on assigned topic is the next category. This category is just basically whether your essay is focused on the writing prompt or if it's unrelated. So if your entire essay is related to the writing prompt and helps the reader understand what you're trying to say, that's 3 points. If most of the essay is related to the prompt, but maybe it wanders off at one point, that's 2 points. If some of the essay is related, but the reader might still have a hard time kind of understanding what you're saying, that's 1 point. If the essay is just completely unrelated, nothing at all about the prompt, that's no points. So I feel like this is pretty easy points to earn if you just really read the prompt and just do what it says. Literary devices. Yes, you do have to include literary devices, such as similes, metaphors, allusions, etc. I will have a list available on the interactive module for you to access just to help generate some ideas for you. If you use more than one literary device and they enhance the reading experience, meaning they fit well in your story, they aren't bad for your story, that's 3 points. If you use only one, but it still enhances the reading experience, that's 2 points. If you use one and it distracts from the reading experience of the reader, that's 1 point. So it's pretty important to make sure that whatever ones you're using, they don't distract from the story. And if you just don't put any in, that's 0 points. So as long as you put some in, you'll get points. Sensory descriptions. Sensory descriptions are just describing things using the 5 senses. Pretty simple, but I will still include a little bit of a better explanation of them on the learning module. So you have to include sensory descriptions in your essay. Here I did not put down specific numbers because I feel that it's kind of a case-sensitive thing. It depends on your topic how many sensory descriptions you're going to use, but you have to include some for sure. So I say for 3 points, I use the word you must include many sensory descriptions and they must contribute to the enjoyment of the reader. I would say a good ballpark for that is like maybe 5 sensory descriptions. If you're not sure if you're using them correctly or underusing them or overusing them, come talk to me. I am beyond willing to assist you in this. The essay contains a few sensory descriptions that contribute to the enjoyment of the reader. That's 2 points. If the essay contains a few sensory descriptions but they distract from the essay, that's 1 point. And I would say a good ballpark for a few is like 2 or 3 maybe. Again, come talk to me if you're unsure. And you get no points if there are none in the essay at all. So as long as you put some in, you will get points. Now, let's talk about the peer review. Before we go to the rubric for that, this is the actual rubric you will be using while you are peer reviewing somebody else's paper, and this is what they'll be using to peer review yours, and this is what I will be using to review your essay as well. So you should probably be pretty familiar with this first draft rubric. But there is a peer review rubric as well because I will be grading your completion of the peer review. Kind of confusing, but trust me on this. As you can see from this points breakdown again, the peer review is 10 points, comes straight from this rubric. 2 categories, 5 points maximum. The first category, super easy, graded 2 papers. If you grade 2 or more papers, you get 5 points. If you grade 1 paper, no papers, that's 0 points. So this is pretty important. Comments. If you provide all thoughtful, helpful, constructive comments and you can tell you really read the first draft, that's 5 points. If you provide mostly thoughtful and helpful comments, occasionally you might say something that's not so thoughtful, or it looks like maybe you could have paid closer attention while reading, that's 4 to 3 points. I'll decide if you get 4 points or 3 points. If the comments you provided were not very thoughtful or helpful or were just really vague, it didn't seem clear if you actually read the draft very well, you can get either 2 points or 1 point for that. I'll decide again if it's 2 or 1. And if you didn't provide any thoughtful or helpful or constructive comments at all, like if you just didn't write any comments down, you just said something completely unrelated like, I like pie, or something, that's 0 points, obviously. Okay, now on to your final draft. Your final draft rubric is pretty much just an extension of your first draft rubric. There are only 2 more categories, and then the one of the categories is edited a little bit. As you can see, your final draft is worth 105 points, and you're probably like, where are all these points coming from? Well, there are 7 categories on this rubric, and the maximum number you can get is 3 points. So 7 times 3 is 21, and then I will multiply your score out of that times 5, and then your score will be out of 105. So, some of the new categories on here, or all of the new categories on here, writing process. You will actually get points as part of your final paper grade for whether you completed the other 4 steps of the writing process, even though you are also getting points outside of this for completing them. I'm really stressing that you need to do all the steps in the writing process if you can't tell. If you do all 4 steps, you get 3 points. If you do 3 steps, 2 points. If you get 2 steps, that's 1 point. And if you do 1 step or no steps, that's 0 points. But if you don't do any steps, this whole rubric's useless anyways. So organization, that's the same. Spelling and punctuation, like I said, this is a lot more strict than your first draft. You can only have 2 spelling or punctuation mistakes maximum in your whole draft. If you have 3 to 4, that's 2 points. 4 to 5, that's 1 point. If you have more than 5, you don't get any points for this category. So really be paying attention to that, because those can add up quickly and you don't want to lose easy points. Focus on the sign topic, literary devices, sensory descriptions, those are all the same as they were. Length requirements. This is another all or nothing. Your length requirement for this paper is 1,500 words. If you have 1,500 words on of your final draft, that's 3 points. If you don't have 1,500 words, that's 0 points. Pretty simple. I will know your word count because you are going to put your word count as a footer at the bottom of the last page of your paper. It's pretty hard to trick me, or I'll pretty easily be able to tell if you're lying about your word count. So don't bother lying, just push for that 1,500 words. It's really not that long, I promise. And then we won't have to have a discussion about academic dishonesty because you lied to me about your word count, which we would have to. So after all of that's done, I will add up your points to total out of 150, and that's your project. Good luck, and thanks for listening. Oh, all of these will be on the interactive learning module for this lesson. All of these rubrics and this points breakdown will be in a Word document along with the list of literary devices and the description of sensory descriptions. Okay, thank you for listening.